Welcome to Secrets from the Saddle podcast. I'm Sylvie Dow, your host, fellow cyclist, bike club founder, cycling coach, bike race junkie, just truly super passionate about cycling. My journey with cycling started 20 years ago when I opened a spin studio, started a women's race team, and founded a women's only cycling club called Cycle Fit Chicks. I'm super thrilled to reveal all aspects that make the world of cycling operate. I'm so excited to be able to bring you interesting people from around the world, pro cyclists, recreational cyclists, coaches, event organizers, bike shop owners, everything and everyone you need to know or ever wondered about when it comes to cycling. I know you'll enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, we're super excited to have Angella Goran back on the podcast. She's a good friend of mine. And as you'll see in our chat, Angella and I have known each other for almost 20 years. I gave her a job as a spin instructor when I had my spinning studio around 2004 or 6, and she was amazing then. She's amazing now. And she went to go and try and break the 1 hour world record in Mexico, but she came back with a national 1 hour record. She's an amazing ambassador for women's cycling, and I can't wait to dive into all the details of her going for this record. So enjoy the episode. It's so amazing to talk to Angella. She's just a great human. So here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Dow. And we have the lovely Angella Goran back for a follow-up. So if you want to go back and listen to her episode, it was on May 19th, 2021. So last year, it was episode 72. And this is kind of like a lead in from that one, because we talked about her Neobank business. And then we also discussed the world attempt, the 1 hour world attempt, record attempt that she had scheduled for that year, which then got pushed to last spring, and then moved to this September. And you know how all of that panned out. So Angella, I'm so excited to have you back to talk about that, because oh my gosh.
Thanks for having me back. This is special because it's you're one of my first podcasts out of a few awesome interviews now that I'm back from kind of vacation mode. But it's special because obviously you're in Ottawa and you've got global presence in the sense of people listening in and tuning in. So it's special. So obviously we've got our own history as two women, and I used to work for you too, right? So I love that.
I know, that's right. So that was back in 2004, 2005, when you moved to Ottawa, and she became one of my spin instructors in my spinning studio, Cycle Fit.
Yeah.
So and then Angella's been going on to doing a ton of entrepreneurial businesses. So let's get back to where we left off with the last episode. We were talking about Neobank. So let's just touch a little bit on that, because I really do want to talk a whole lot about just getting ready for that world record attempt that ended up being a national record.
Correct.
So let's just talk about the Neobank, because I'm sure you've been putting that off maybe a little bit to focus in on this. And where's that at?
The balance. Yeah. Well, I think like anything, just like training for a specific event, launching a company has its ups and downs too. I actually going to say for myself and the team behind TAPanGO Technologies, we have been very fortunate with the turn of the markets. I highlight, kind of looking at the tech environment for those that are interested in it, and obviously reading up on all these increased interest rates and the bear market that hit us a few months ago. Obviously investors, not just in Canada, the US and global, because that really is our reach, is they're tightening in on their reins. They're really looking at companies' valuations. And we're at that sweet spot, like made a quick decision. And I shared that on that last podcast, is made a really stealth decision to not go to market in 2020. We all know why. Tap and Go, which makes this different. Like for those that understand neobanking, I always kind of like to define it so people understand it a little bit better. Yeah. So digital banking, right? So everything you can think about from the day-to-day banking of what you would do. I've seen that we're in Canada. So if you're with RBC or BMO or CIBC or one of those banks, right? Obviously you can get a checkings account, savings account, you get loans, you get lines of credit, mortgages. So neobanks and challenger banks are kind of what is this newer format of digital banks. We're not brick and mortar. We're really focused on the online presence of offering those same services to customers at the click of a button, anytime, anywhere, assessing also the support for different languages, which is really cool. So if you're looking for immediate financial planning, but say maybe you're a newly landed immigrant from the Ukraine or from Somalia, kind of hard to walk into a bank when you're from a different country and have that support. So lots of neobanks or fintechs, which is what the category is we fall under, offer solutions that particularly what I would call the monolithic banks are not going to really step up to really service. And it's become fascinating because, you know, I think a lot of people, they get confused over what is the neobank world, but I love to say it's everything that you can think about in your day-to-day banking that you would do, but this is all digital. It's all online. You still can get issued cards, so you can still use that at a vendor or a merchant when you transaction, but realistically everything's mobile. So it's an app, it's an app, right? It's a wallet here. So with us, I'm excited. And I know from our background being sport and wellness, I started to look at this market more from a why perspective, which is like my last company, all for kind of doing purpose in communities. And I thought, if banks are taking, and credit card companies especially, and processors, trillions of dollars from the hard-earned money that we make as people, how could we simplify the solution? And I think that's where, you know, I always kind of laugh. I always say to people, if they really, when I started to skin the cat, pardon me for saying it that way, but when you look at the layers of transactions and how they process, it's kind of like a math formula. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, there's 5 hands in the cookie jar. And I could eliminate a few of those, right? I could keep some money in the back of my pocket and pay the merchant or the small business that I'm transactioning with, or they could save a little bit if I made it easier. So that being said, I started to challenge some of the neobanks that are out there, even though they're disruptors in the space, but they were still offering a solution that was similar to the day-to-day bank. So, you know, when I look at Coho, which would be another neobank here in Canada, Coho, our Neo is well known. They're the ones that are doing the credit card for the bank. For the Bay. It still is, here's another Visa card, right? Here's another MasterCard. It's okay. So what are you offering that's a different solution? And so that's where Tap and Go for us, I really wanted to get into saying, well, I truly believe that there's niche communities where people transaction and spend and brand. So Sylvie, like yourself and the community that are here listening, are more than likely into sport, I'm going to say, into fitness. They want to learn about new nutrition tips or products that are out there, maybe some good coaches that are out there that are licensed that they could get their services paid for. So for us, it was more about building a marketplace of vendors that have services and products that are specific to a community where people transaction. So now Tap and Go is about issuing products or programs that are specific to a need. So Athletica Rewards is our first Visa debit program. It's not a credit card. It's a generally loadable card. It's going to be an e-wallet as well. So you can transaction and use it on your mobile watch or your mobile phone to do payments that way. But it's connected to brands that are relative to that market. And it's not we're not I don't want to put people in a shoebox and say, you're the one size shoe fits everybody. I really want this to be the glass slipper effect for every single person. So our programs are going to be specific. So we've got sport and wellness. We'll have ones for female founders. We'll have ones that are focused on next gen. And then you can start to see where we can start to go to merchants in the specific market to say, hey, we can lower your cost, not just to acquire a customer, but also the transaction process. So that's where when you go in and you transaction, oftentimes, remember, if you go into a coffee shop, they'll be like, look, if you don't spend $10, we're going to have to charge you $2 for the process to take place, because they're losing that money, right? The processor fee.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done. We've been able to, because of the fund rail, we take that card, we've connected now the merchant in the marketplace. When you transaction, it actually happens on one fund rail versus having to push it out and pull it back from a different bank. And that's why there's those processor fees. So processors kind of become a middleman. We've made it easy by partnering and internalizing our processor. And that's one of our unique features out of some of the other ones that make us a big competitor. So we're excited. We're getting ready to launch. That
Oh,
was,
okay. I was going to say,
yeah.
is this already out or when are you launching now?
Yeah.
When's your date?
Our date, so goal is we're going to be doing a real big push throughout the whole fall. So we're going to start to drop some press release next month at Kona in Hawaii. I'll be back down there just meeting with some of the vendors and merchants we have, saying thanks and hi. We've got some really great athlete ambassadors that are going to be doing the championships. And then out of that is then we'll be back and really launching it January the 1st. So the big kind of push is going to be, especially with sport and wellness, is getting people engaged, getting them on early bird registration almost,
Oh,
and
yeah.
really setting them up for a January 2023 push. That will be the first program. And then my goal is then throughout January and February is to start to also market to our second program is called Alexandrite, and that's focused on the female founders. So we have been told we will be the first digital e-wallet solution for female founders across North America. So
Oh, explain that a little bit more. That's interesting.
yeah, so same idea as Athletica. Like the whole reason why we built TAPanGO as the main co, it's a technology. We can put as many products or programs out there that are niche. And as a team, when I sat down and worked with my mentors and my board, as we started to look at fundamentally what are other specific niches that are in need of better financial services, Sylvia, I think you'd probably agree with this, female founders, right? Like
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
definitely, it's not to say like we're a huge conversation, but just looking at what the pandemic's done to decrease the access points, getting women on board, supporting small businesses that women have started, and now maybe they're needing that extra added support to get it back on the ground or get it going. Alexandrite, we started to look at that as well as the next gen. So kind of that 18 to 40-year-old and looking at how can we fundamentally get younger people set from a debt perspective, not in debt at an early stage. And when we weighed out the odds, I thought, you know what, Alexandrite just fits the bill because we've got so many small businesses in need of our support. It's also a marketplace. So not only are we getting a female founder, we're also getting that female founder's business on our marketplace technology. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 deal, right? So we can support it because oftentimes a lot of these, I love Spell would be a good example. Elle lives in Toronto, great female founder. She has a shoe line that's a beautiful designer pump line. I know our Minister of Finance, she's worn the pumps into the budget for the last 2 or 3 years. And that's a good example. Like here's a female founder that would use our program, but also Spell shoes would be a great product to actually be able to market to the female founder network. And that's, it's kind of neat, like different services, like when you think about Athletica, it's for somebody leading an active lifestyle. We might be able to support them with kind of a buy now, pay later option if they wanted to buy a bike over a period of 12 months versus having the upfront cost. Whereas with the female founder solution, we'll be able to get into lines of credit, loans for their small business, offerings, financial services and coaching as well as mentorship. So connecting these females to other organizations and associations based on where they are located to support them. Things that we had to search for, going back 5-10 years ago, that access point wasn't there.
Would that be kind of like replacing you, say, like your CIBC business account? Like,
yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And
correct.
then can you use that also as a portal to take purchases, or is that something completely different?
That's completely different. So yeah, that would be, but because we're now, which is going to be a new announcement, I can't release it here yet. But we will. Yeah, I know the suspense. We will have some big news coming out in the next 30 to 60 days. And that's one of the things that we will be able to work with our processor to support small businesses on doing those action items for taking transactions for.
So instead of using Stripe, you would have like your own.
You would have a processor internal, exactly.
Oh, no. That would be very cool because then it would just go directly to your bank account instead of like
Having to wait
maybe,
for it to come in.
yeah. Or, and so would that take away some of the processing fees for
100%.
moving the money around?
You got it.
Oh,
So that's kind of one of our things that we've been really working towards is, and again, it's all about creating a community effect. So our goal is to say to a founder, let's say for the Alexandrite program, is to go and say, okay, well, what would it usually take for you to acquire a customer for your product or service? And what would you be willing to if we brought you that customer share so we can give some cash rewards back, right? And that's where, again, collectively as a community, what we've put into the business model is to offer, if any of the merchants come on and offer us 15% or more, we're going to get their processor fees down to, I can't announce it, but we'll be the lowest processor fee that you'll have ever seen in North America, which is really exciting for us, because then we'll be able to share more in a return from the rewards cash play. And I know how much Amazon gouges small businesses. Unfortunately, it's not any, it's transparent. Like, you're losing 15 to 30% when you sell on Amazon, just because that's what the cost is to work with
yeah.
them,
They
right?
charge a lot, like even for holding fees to hold your products in their
Exactly.
warehouses, which, it makes sense because you don't want it sitting in your garage. You
In
want
your
it
garage,
somewhere
yeah, it depends on the size
that,
of your business, but yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
yeah, no, it's exciting. It's kind of, it's been a long time coming, but I think those that are a little bit patient, it works out. You never anticipate certain things, but it's kind of like dealing with the markets. And for sure, we're at a point now where the right partners are there, the right incentives, and now I don't think we're going to see the world go backwards with what we've saw in the pandemic. If right, finger knock
Yeah.
on wood. I shouldn't say that too soon, but
I think
I
like
sure
I think
hell
there'd be a
hope.
big pushback if that were to happen again. It's like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I don't think we could, I don't think people would allow it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is so refreshing to see people kind of back out. I know people are
Oh,
hesitant, but I'm not. I got that Band-Aid ripped off traveling to Mexico. Although they do take caution down there. There's still people wearing masks in grocery stores and places, but it is back to normal. Like, there's just so many people, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
exciting
schools
times.
are back to normal. Hospitals are not asking, and it's so nice to
So nice.
see and feel the normalcy. So let's just hold on to that. So now, how did you put all of that business stuff on hold for 2 months in Mexico? Now, I don't even know if I should start there yet, but because because maybe we should go back even further because I have been, and this just goes to a lot of the friends of mine who have had who have had events pushed back like 2 years, and they're just like they're stuck having to attend these events that they are no longer like mentally and physically interested in anymore. But just like triathlons, for instance, I think
Oh
is
yeah.
probably one of the ones I'm thinking of that, you pay a ton of money and they were just rolling them forward, right? And I have friends who have them lined up because either they have to use them or they're going to lose the money.
Yeah.
And they're just like so not motivated to do
I'm like,
anything,
how am
and
I
they're just
supposed to
like,
do like 20 triathlons now? Like, right? Yeah,
I know.
I know, right?
So
So I
let's
think we
go
have a
back
really
to
fit
that
society.
that yeah, that May where you were getting ready to go at,
This is
it
the
was
10th.
May. So yeah, when was the date that you were
Yeah.
going? You
So
were going
the original date was May, it was going to be May 18th of 2020.
Oh, okay,
That
so that's the original date.
that was the original first like date. We all know what happened on March the 15th of
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah,
Um,
really.
so and I was literally about to go into kind of like that downward kind of like, just prep, get on a plane, get down to Aguascalientes. I had access lots of good partners and sponsors that were there, obviously pre-pandemic, and then it was just like for anybody kind of just stop and halt and kind of go, how long is this going to happen, right? Like the UCI, who is the governing body behind these record attempts,
Okay.
They themselves were also like, even trying to reach them was not happening. Like, you know, their number one was obviously the tour, and looking forward into the summer and dealing with like
Yeah.
your your Roubaix to your Tour de France
Mm-hmm.
to your, yeah. So it was interesting. Like when I finally got a hold of the gentleman I had been dealing with back and forth, he said, yeah, until further notice, there's no records, right? Like we're just focused solely on our tours and seeing what we can do this summer with technically where they make the majority of
Yeah.
the money.
Yeah.
And so that being said, obviously then I had to go back to the Sport Federation in Mexico. So there's kind of like, what's interesting, and that's a whole other space, is, you know, out of doing this, there is a lot, I think, even with the UCI, now that we have a few good Canadians that have worked for Cycling Canada, and I know Jacques Landry from New Zealand, he went back to New Zealand, and now I think he's with the UCI in Switzerland. It's going to be interesting to go back, because I think there's a formality that one could actually consult and help them a little bit on these parameters around the records, because so many people are so confused on if you're doing it as an age group, or even if you're doing the world record attempt. You know, I know from listening and hearing Vittoria Bussi's story, you know, yeah, like the logistics, like, and it was, I'll honestly say, equally as hard as putting the sweat on the track and doing the attempt was logistically mapping this by myself.
Right.
It really isn't a solo attempt. Like, honestly, if it wasn't for the partners and sponsors and the group that I had and family and friends that just kept motivating me, it wouldn't have been possible at all. Like it's an expensive endeavor. You really have to budget for it, and take care of those kind of things. So at least some of it was taken care of by 2020. And then it was just kind of like a holding pattern to kind of wait for the signal. And of course, because I did want to go after the world record attempt and the national attempt at the same time, I had to follow the parameters that the UCI guidelines had. So there was, you know, you had to have, at that time, it was 4 months, 4 months notice in advance of the date of you were doing the attempt. And then you also had to have your commissionaire lined up from the UCI, your timekeepers. Yeah, exactly. Right. So you kind of go down the list and you have this, they provide you this check mark list. But what happened in the pandemic was, as we saw, which is, you know, amazing on its own, is Vittoria Bussi did her world record attempt in 2018. I would have been the next female if I successfully had gone out and did the attempt in 2020 to go at it. But then what ended up happening is throughout the pandemic, and it's interesting to kind of look at it. And I love it, because honestly, hats off to anybody that just goes out and you know what it's like, right? Like puts their mind to doing it. So then we saw Joss Loudon come at it, and Ellen Vendick, and these are amazing powerhouse women, like, and they're super awesome. Like they're gems. They're such lovely women. You know, I could talk to Joss Loudon for days. Like this female that's been and Ellen, oh my God, like she's been in the sport for so long and still puts out these incredible watts. So what's happened in the pandemic is these athletes had access to the facilities. They had access to full training, which a majority of us didn't. Right. And not on the national team, that was a limitation for myself. You know, super grateful to Ken Burnett and his team in Ottawa here at Peak. Like I literally was Sylvia Lap, like sneaking in with the fob into the gym and like using the CompuTrainer, because what else was I supposed to do? Like, you know, so here I am, and most people, and I couldn't post those stories because then he would have gotten in trouble by the building owner. Because here I was, you know, walking into a building freaking 9 o'clock at night, and Nick's laughing at me going, "Oh my God, you're crazy." But you know, you do what you got to do to get it done.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I don't get how she's like getting all this training in, because like Ellen Van Dyke is like the world, what is it? She's the world national champion, you know, like
3 times over, 4 times over, right? Like she's a beast. She's like, I freaking love her. She's so bad.
I saw that and I'm like, just a second. Isn't like Angela supposed to be doing this too?
Yeah.
Cause
when Ellen came, when Joss did it, number one, like Joss on her own, like, so what was funny was that was kind of, you know, at that stage, I already,
that was in May.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You were scheduled to do it in May. And then that came out. I was like, okay.
So that's happening. And I knew before, like, I knew that was happening just because of Argonne and a few other sponsors kind of saying, hey, there's another person coming, and we know what's happening. And the UCI,
this other person.
So Yeah, you know what? It's kind of interesting. Like for me, it was exciting to know, number one, you put the time in, you put the miles in. It would have been really cool to have been able to do it in 2020, because at that stage I had access and I had all the training and I had prepped for it from 2017 and my mind was there. Obviously we all know as you age, power can be lost. I don't know if it's been lost though, Sylvie. It's kind of been cool. Like definitely, you know,
if you keep it consistent, it should consistently stay strong.
But there's, yeah, like, I think definitely if I had a little bit more access points in some of the training, like I was doing, which is why I went down to Mexico a little earlier, was just because getting to Milton from here in Ottawa, as you know, is a 6-hour drive. It's not conducive. The track time was very limited, even in February, March, April, because of the pandemic. We were still pretty much until Easter, they didn't have a schedule. So for me to get on there and actually do motor pacing and things that I needed to be doing from a record attempt side, it was really challenging. So I'm glad I went down and did what I did, but it was definitely, like, I think like all of your friends that are triathletes and cyclists, like 2 years, the choice to continue to train definitely kept me focused on mentally being strong and physically being strong. I think any of us needed that outlet. And it was nice to have that, because I think I hope for all my friends that are listening and watching, like it gave them a little bit of motivation and inspiration too. Because I think everybody got hit hard at certain different levels. So it was kind of nice to be hey, like, let's just go out for a bike ride, or, like, let's like do a workout like this on the, like yoga classes and fun stuff. But yeah, I look at it now and I'm impressed. One, kept the caliber, at least getting what I could do with the resources. We built a gym upstairs at the place here. So had all of that, that was kind of a lot of fun with the med balls. And we built we have a full squat rack, and I have, kettlebells. I have everything I needed here from a training weight perspective.
Did you use them? That's the other big question. So it's there.
I did use them. I used them.
I have.
Yeah, they were well used. Nick will definitely attest to that. They were and put to the test. And the compy trainer definitely got a lot of pain and suffering in at Peak Center. Ken knows that I showed up.
You don't have your own power trainer at home? I thought you were sitting at home too.
I do. Yeah, I do have a power trainer here, but interesting enough, working with Ken, and Ken worked a lot with Cycling Canada back in the day.
Okay.
He was still really convinced. He said, look, like, and I do have to agree, like I've ridden enough on Swift and certain platforms, and the consistency, and that's a challenge with track cycling. You put one, it's a fixie bike. So you put one gear on and you need to sustain and maintain watts. And and I think that for me, what's nice about the compy trainer is you set it, your cadence, the watts you're pushing. And if I need to push that for 50 minutes, that's what my workout is that day. That's what I'm pushing. So as it kind of built, especially the last year, the last 12 months, Ken was like, look, I really want you to come in and hit when we have those longer rides, that you're hitting the consistent watts. Other than that, I was doing my workouts at home or out on the road.
The compy trainer is still, I think, by far the most consistent. And trainer out there. It's just too bad it's never gonna be ever
reinvented, kind of, right? Like after the founder passed away, it never really, because I agree, it's definitely got good mathematical science. Like if I was a coach, like it's a great basis to have people use. Swift is fun. Like, oh my gosh, like Eric Min and his team at Swift and what they've been able to do to build that network and build the gamification aspect. Like, and now even to think, I saw the recent post, which I'm excited for, because again, I'm about getting people out on a journey of being fit and well, like you are. And I love seeing that there's athletes in Africa that, because of Swift, are training and competing in the esports Swift games that are hoping to be a pro team, right? And that's awesome. Like, those are things that we as a global community would have never been able to think possible. So I do look at some of the awesome things that the smart tech is doing and allowing. It kept some of us, sane. During the lockdown.
Still keeps us sane. Now we're like, Swift.
Yeah.
So let's go back to, you know, the feelings of having everything like, oh my gosh, like another year. And how do you sit back and put everything to perspective? Like, because you have also your business things that you have to, and you were doing lots of traveling, and because putting that in, it's like you really do have to build up your performance
Yeah.
to get like
Yeah.
to do that kind of thing. So how did that affect? Because like, you know, from, you know, fall 2021 to like literally May,
Yeah.
beginning of going, oh my God, fuck, another year. Like,
Another year.
was there
Yeah.
ever a time where you're like, you know, maybe I'm just not gonna do this?
Oh, there was definitely some moments.
Like,
There was probably more few
or
moments than I want to admit to. And there was definitely moments I did
you're
it by
like,
myself and I didn't
how do
even
I
think
get out of
about,
this? How do I get out of this?
yeah, what do I do? And I don't, you know, it's interesting. Like, I think like all of us, we had no idea on how long the pandemic was going to take. Right. So
Mm,
when I look at back now, I think what's interesting and I would love is to actually have somebody interview my family and my friends when I'm not in the room and ask them the exact same question. Because I'm pretty sure Nick and my mom for sure, my brother and like really close friends and family would probably say like, oh yeah, there was definitely moments they remember that I've completely like put back in my like medulla oblongata somewhere, or like my cortex is like holding it for like coming back as a mental health issue when I'm like 70. But for now, my
I have
memory.
PTSD from that whole event.
Oh, seriously. It's like, yeah, just like any athlete, right? We like freaking go overboard. But I think the nice part was because we didn't know when the end was, and this is everybody. I wasn't the only one going through this. I had other friends too that were registered for events. I a close friend and somebody that's local, Mark Waugh with Sports Stats,
Oh
which
yeah. Yeah.
right trained for his 50th birthday for Ironman. We know what happened. So he's same thing. He's trained. He's doing Ironman finally in Kona this October. So, you know, I'm same thing. Like he was in that same kind of boat going, frick, like I got to keep my training up for an Ironman. And trust me,
Yeah.
I
Like
kind of joke going, well, must have fun going out for another 7-hour ride thinking you're going to do your Ironman in a few months. My workout's only an hour and a half. So, you know, like I kind of like we'd have fun jokes with some friends that were in that boat. But yeah, I think, you know, there's a point where for sure my battle was for sure more on the logistics with the UCI and just not having answers
yeah.
and the communication and being somebody who's running and operating a business. That was my honestly like my biggest frustration is how do I convince the UCI that with individuals like myself who are doing whether it be a master's or a world record on my own that they care. And I look at this as like, you know, Cycling Canada too, like all the transitions and staff and different people. It was really frustrating to know who to talk to, what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Everybody had a different message. And Sylvie, like honestly, that was probably more where my mental break was going, this is so complicated where I thought it was going to be so easy. Let people
Oh,
like, oh, here's a piece of
but
paper, sign up.
there's a lot of cogs in that wheel because like you said, you have to coordinate everybody. Like also like getting down there and I think the best thing was, you know, having another group to hang out with. I mean, imagine being down there for 2 months by
By
yourself.
myself. Yeah. Well, the two
I
months
think
I
that
was
would
there
be
by
devastating. Like, you know,
pretty much the 2 months I was there by myself, like with the Spanish, like the main group came in around the August long weekend or like right, like almost like a week before. I just made the choice because I had gotten to know Juan Carlos and Israel. And Israel's the coach of the juniors, like the U23 team down there. And then
right.
Juan Carlos, JC is his nickname. He's one of the Sport Institute directors who I had to be in touch with for the timers and the operators. Like he's the one that
Mhm.
manages the facility that the track cycling is in amongst like, I think 8 other sports that happen in Aguascalientes as a state.
Right.
So kind of like my go-to was JC and Israel and their families. Like I flew down there. I had known them now for 2 years over WhatsApp. We had gotten to know each other and it was just
Yeah.
like a really nice friendship. And honestly, when I got down there, I just felt like they were family. Like I was embraced. They jokingly, and they would say this too, like they've never had an athlete want to come down for that long, but they knew the circumstances and it was them that offered
Mhm.
it. You know, it was kind of, I stayed at a great Airbnb. I almost came back with a cat rescue. I'm really missing Kiki. I left a really cute cat down there, but she's well taken care of. Where I stayed, it has a nice kind of community effect, so she's there. But yeah, I had a beautiful time. I think, you know, definitely Aguascalientes has a little place in my heart. I'm looking forward to going back, not to do a record. As I know Israel is probably going to watch this and be like, "Oh, is she going to say it?" Because he's like, "You should come back. We can do this. We can keep you going." Because he's worked with Victoria, he's worked with Molly, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. But I said, "Yeah, I'm ready to go on. Maybe become a coach a little bit here or there. Get my business off the ground. I'm excited to be more on the other side, like." You know, definitely excited to be on the other side and still bike, but you know, that's, as you know, like 2 years added on to the expected, and it's a very solo event. So I, you know, I missed out on a lot of fun group rides with girlfriends. That was a big sacrifice. And yeah, like a lot of lonely training goes into doing an attempt like this, but you know, you kind of go inside, you find a new part of you that you didn't know you had. Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think I've ever met that person, but I was like, maybe as I get older, I'll go for an attempt. I'm like, Sylvie, you're crazy.
You never know once you make the decision. I'm trying to get a few. I'm like going, it's funny because obviously for those that followed, like my attempt was on Wednesday, the 24th. I'm kind of
Yes, what happened?
Oh yeah. So that's what I was going to say.
Like, there's Angela slept in.
No, so this is, you know, talk about, and definitely I'm proud of what transpired. Yeah, I got up like any other day, and we had been training. So take note, like middle of Mexico, you're in the desert. There are times you do not want to be riding the track anything more than, you know, 5 minutes. It's really hot. And that's kind of between the 12 o'clock window and the 4 p.m. window. It's just like, it is so hot. Every 5 minutes, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And then once the sun kind of goes down, then it cools off. It's quite cool. Like in the mornings, you know, you're wearing armies and you wear knee warmers at this time of year. But yeah, by that spike. So what happened was my attempt time was set for 11 a.m., which is what I was training and geared up for. And when you're getting into those kind of sets that are like an hour long, you've got to play your nutrition, your hydration out. So we had planned that out. I got up, everything was good, got to the track, did my warm up. There was one woman before me, and I still don't know what happened, because she was supposed to be on the track between 9:45 and 10:45 a.m. for her hour attempt. She was doing an age group record attempt. I think a world record too. And anyways, she didn't get on the track till 10:45, which was my window. So by the time she was done and I got access to the track to do a couple laps just to kind of warm up and get into the start gate, it was noon. So when I started my record attempt, I was dealing with like an increase every single minute to 2 minutes in temperature. So at the halfway point, and you got to remember from a nutrition and a hydration standpoint, I wasn't fueling because my fueling was off. Not to say like I had you should be well reserved in the hydration space. It was more so the nutrition. I hadn't eaten anything solid since like 6:37 in the morning. So here I am, it's noon. I'm at the start. You know, at the halfway point, and anybody that's an athlete knows this, like the minute that your mind switches from like, I'm here, I'm on it, you're thinking positive thoughts, when it starts to switch to go, why am I doing this? And this is not feeling right. Like there was, I wouldn't say negative thoughts, but I was just going, this is not happening. Like it was like the mind switch, like my mind and my legs were not, they just weren't there. And yeah, it was really hard. It was, you know, honestly, like you could, and it's unfortunate. Like I know there's videos because the live stream wasn't really that good. And I went up track on the opposite side. There's definitely a few curses. I'm pretty sure Nick heard because he was on that side. I was, you know, obviously really sad. And I didn't know that I was going to be able to do another attempt the next day. I knew there was another day of racing. I didn't know if they were going to be able to fit it in. So at that stage, I just thought, wow, like I came down here and I didn't even finish. And, you know, I've never had a DNF. And that's like doing,
Yeah,
I've never had
I'm
to
like
do
that
that.
too. I got one. I'm like,
Yeah, it
no
hurts. Like,
way. That no, no. Take me off. I know I was never here. I don't want to do
yeah,
anything.
it's like I wanted to crawl under a rock. And
Hmm.
especially when like obviously being on the track, like I knew 2 weeks before when I was going into just that final like major workouts before taking kind of a week of just keeping the leg spinning, I had done the attempt. Like I knew I had done the Canadian record, even better than the time that I did when I came back the next day. But that's the cool about, I love that about sport, like even triathlon or any cycling, right? Like you can go out, you could race that same course the next weekend or the next year and go, what the hell happened today, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's where, you have to kind of look inside yourself and kind of figure out like where it was. And I definitely, there's a few people like on that Wednesday, and I shared it because obviously people were messaging saying what happened, where it was.
Yeah, I
And
was
I had,
watching.
yeah, it was really, I felt like I needed to do that moment, and I meditate a little bit here and there. And I took the afternoon and I went and found a quiet spot. Kiki kept bugging me, which was pretty cute. And I put my earphones in, and after I kind of left the note for people, and I made that decision to go back. And 9:30 in the morning, I'd never really trained at before. The gear I rode was a gear I'd never ridden also. So, because we had to play with the temperature differences, but I just had it in my mind. And that's what Israel kind of said. He goes, look, I know you came here to do the best that you possibly can to try to do a world record, but he goes, look,
Mhm.
like I've never seen anybody ever come down in their first go and say, I'm going to go after a world record, even a national record. He's like, they come down here to just get an attempt under their wing to see what it feels like.
Right.
And he's like, you've come down here with a purpose. And he goes, you have the Canadian record off record, go and do that today and just go out and ride and have fun. You have the
Hmm.
legs to do it. So, between that and a few awesome private messages on Instagram from a couple of really good people, I had good thoughts throughout the whole ride. Like it hurt. I definitely won't lie. I had vile taste in my mouth for a few moments, a couple times. And I'm glad
How
people didn't.
fast? How fast did you finish? What was your average?
It
What?
was just under 43 kilometers an hour.
Mm.
So I bested it by, I think, a lap and a bit. I'd have to look at the official last record, and like shout out to Jane, because she's the one that held the last Canadian record. She's a gem. So I'm hoping she comes back and tries to oust me. Or I think we've got a few other great Canadian cyclists. I'm just saying, like, a few that should be giving it a go, because it really is. It's a fun attempt on yourself. Like maybe not fun when you're doing it, but it really does. Yeah, yeah. Especially when you hit the 30-minute
The
mark.
idea
I'm
is so
telling
much
you,
fun, but
40
doing
minutes.
it.
Yeah, not when you're doing it. There's moments, but definitely when you get in the last 10 minutes and you're like there, right? And that's kind
Yeah.
of where you get the mind body
Like the 20
separation.
minutes. Oh my God. Or no, you're like 10 minutes in, 15. You're like,
Oh yeah, it's kind of, yeah. It's
and
like,
then it rolls over. You're like, oh, okay.
oh, I'm almost
Almost done.
there.
Yeah.
Almost there. Yeah. I definitely, yeah. Hats off. Like I absolutely love the experience. Like thinking of the speeds that these women go, like honestly, like, and it's fast, but when you're looking at a comparison between an 18.4 second lap, which is what Ellen did, to mine, which was just around the 20-point mark, you're dealing with a second, right? Like a second and a half. It's just flying out there. It's so fast. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. I applaud anybody that just kind of gives it a go, because you are testing your maximum human potential. Like you lay it out on the line,
Yeah.
and mentally kind of go to new horizons or new places if you allow yourself to do it. So for any athlete, like it's just a neat aptitude, but I'm excited to move on. Like the purpose was there, and that's what kept me motivated for the 2
Like,
years. Honestly, for me, I've now got the impact fund that I'm going to be announcing for girls and women in sport. We've got some really exciting news coming out of the production scene with a film called Perfect or Podium, breaking records and barriers for girls and women in sport. And our season 1 we're just waiting to hear from some of the major networks that we've been back and forth with. So we'll have news hopefully by the end of this fall. And we've just signed some major contracts that will be announced too. So the website's going to be updated. So that's kind of where, when we launched AngelaGoran.com, I'll be updating that. And we've got the Perfect or Podium site that's ready to go. And that's where I'm going to shift my energy, like both for Athletica. TAPanGO's first program will be able to do a lot of CSR, corporate social responsibility, for those that don't know the acronym, into Perfect or Podium, which I hope to build into a foundation for girls in sport. And there's a lot of really good athletes and advocates that are signing up to join in the mission as we start to build it out. And that's my next chapter, Sylvie. Like that is really what drove me throughout the whole 2 years. I kind of figured, you know what, I need to do this, not just for me, but I put it out there in 2017 to do it for others, and I don't want to give up on it.
So talk about the foundation, because I'm always curious about that, because I've been in women in sport for a long time, and I'm like, am I doing as much as I can for women in sport? I don't feel like I am, but so
well,
where
would sharing stories?
Well, I know, but like it just feels like there's more to be done, and so, and I look at what you're doing, I'm like, what's that? And then there's the fast and female.
Fast and female. Yeah. Shonda,
Yeah.
great group.
So how would somebody like me get involved with this? Kind of like, now we're segueing into something totally different, because Angela does a ton of things, as you can tell. But like, how would I segue into that? And then I want to wrap back.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I think first and foremost, anybody that takes part in giving back to sport, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a coach or a leader or mentor, every part helps, right? Like, I think that's the major part, is people need to start to realize how much their role plays in somebody else's life. And that's part of what I'm excited with season 1. And I'll give you a little teaser. Season 1 is focused on the girl. Season 2 is focused on the young woman, and season 3 is focused on the retired athlete. So the viewer is going to follow this life of this young girl, actually 2 girls particularly, from the nonfiction side and the fiction side. The fiction side will have these 2 characters that hopefully people will fall in love with, that end up being best friends as they go through middle school and high school, to then get chosen on to sports scholarships and our pro team. And they still continue as young women in season 2. And you follow that journey of one that goes pro and one that takes on the scholarship. But, how you can participate is that important message in season 1 is just being somebody who notices, or is a good parent, or is a good neighbor, or a good community, or a good teacher. We have an example to set, and whether that's to the next generation of young girls and boys on what their potential is. And it might not be sport, right? Like, I think obviously sport's been incredible for us, but I think everybody has a particular gift. So taking part in something and noticing it, like yourself, with sharing other people's stories in sport and coaching, and you've got an incredible women's cycling group. You've done a lot. And I think that's highlighting those things. Everybody has their part of what they can do. What Perfect or Podium, what I'm hoping comes out of it, because it's collectively, like, it's having great people like yourself join in and share the story, and the Ellens and the Victorias and the Cycling USAs and the USA Cycling and Cycling Canada and so forth. But it's all sport organizations. For me, what I want to hope is see that collectively, as we move in, we'll go through the foundation process in a couple of years, because at first it's more the non-for-profit angle, then you apply for charitable status. Definitely we'll probably apply within the first 6 months to be a 501c also in the US. It's a lot easier to do charitable status in the US. But for myself, we really want to run it fiscally as an actual foundation that gives back to organizations that are already making impact, and or associations. So like Fast and Female, they would be a perfect example. Like, I don't need to go create another charity that's trying to ask for your money to then go and donate to create A, B, and C. There's already great organizations out there trying to raise capital to do good things.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do, is elevate some of those organizations like Fast and Female to Hurricanes is another really good one. The Canadian Women's Sport Association. So for me, it's really looking at a spectrum of organizations that are touching young sport activities and I guess community events to individuals that might want to go on. Maybe there's somebody that's 18 years old that needs to have some sport or some funding to go to post-secondary to do sport management, or they want to go into sport journalism, right? Like, how do we get more women doing that? Because honestly, the next big thing I want to see out of this is that we get more broadcasting for female sports. And that's
that'd be cool.
right? Yeah.
Cool.
So
Okay, so that is super cool. Now let's go back to the World Attempt because I want to ask a couple questions about that.
yeah.
Now, for someone who, say, let's just give myself an example. If I want to do it, how much am I looking at spending
Budget.
to do that? Yeah, budgeting, because,
Budget.
you know, getting over there and staying there and then training and then the coaches and then you had all these bikes and I'm like, where does Ange get all these stuff?
Yeah. You kind of choose. So there's a couple things you do get to choose as an athlete where you want to do your attempt. I could have done it in Milton. Yeah. So the attempts don't have they have to happen on a UCI sanctioned track. So obviously Milton in Canada is one. We'll have one soon in Bromont. But Aguascalientes, as well as the one in Switzerland, which I can tell you there's a secret sauce to why Switzerland's producing some really fast times. They actually have a circular wind tunnel that happens in the track. So it's pretty cool. You get a push from behind. They built it in an interesting way, but yeah, cost wise, if you, let's say, like, obviously, because I did mine in Aguascalientes, I had to budget in the round trip airfare to and from where I lived. Had to budget in being there. Now I made that choice just because of the pandemic to go down earlier and get an Airbnb and work with a coach hands-on.
Right.
But that typically wouldn't have to happen. Hopefully you can get access to a facility, but then still with that facility, even Milton, if I was to stay here, I would have had to pay the fees to go and use the track.
Train on it. Yeah.
Train on. And I would have had to book it privately because there would be sessions I would need behind a motorbike or to get in and actually just use my aero bike, because in the open track sessions at Milton, you're not allowed to use your drop bars. You're not allowed to use your aero bars. You're only allowed to use your drop bars. So it wouldn't be conducive for some of the specific training I had to do. So that being said, I would definitely rule out and put into the budget that you're spending at least, anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000 between travel and accommodation and a couple of track rentals to facilitate some of those sessions. And that's USD. Like that's typically they charge all of that. Then you've got to look at your blood doping commissioner. If you do a record, then you get a stand around and wait to produce a little bit of pee in a jar. You got to pay for that. Super fun. That's about $500 US. Yeah. So that was super fun. Let me tell you how much water I drank. I think I slammed like 12 like bottles of water. I was like, and like sitting there with like a cold. I was like, come on, let's go pee.
Yeah.
It was really funny. Cause I wanted to get out of there. I didn't want to be in this freaking little office for a few hours. I had my family and we wanted to get going, but in total, oh my God, I would say you should budget for at least 12,000 to 15,000 USD to pay the commissioners, the timekeepers, the drug testing, the licenses, both to the sport federation of where you're doing your attempt, because they have to certify it, as well as the UCI, and then your travel and accommodations. And then that's over and above, like if you don't have the right bike, right? So when it comes to that, very grateful in the sense of having the support, like SRAM came on board. I was very fortunate. And at the same point in time, there's a whole story that I can't publicly share behind the bike that I did ride, because unfortunately very disappointed in the brand themselves for some of the things that they've done now towards women, particularly.
Oh, well, everybody go check out what she was riding.
I know. Hence why the frame was also changed to say my name, Angela, and an incredible sponsor that I've had, Nella, which is in my name. So we covered up the name because I was not proud to represent the company.
Oh, really? Yeah. I have to go back and check your posts.
Yeah. It's, I think like anything you go through, it's interesting being a more mature adult. Like I think if I was going to race elite, I would have had some further decisions, but it was, they made some decisions close to the end that were just kind of not appropriate. And I didn't feel comfortable publicly talking about it. I think brands go through changes. And it was unfortunate because it was really not conducive to the overall theme of why I was doing the attempt. Let's put it that way. So that happened.
Right.
So that was an interesting experience, kind of
Okay,
having
who can make a sticker really quick?
Yeah. So, they have a great team. It was just important. It was the marketing thing that they wanted to redirect and focus. And after 2 years, brands change, right? Like I think a lot of the bike industry had a lot ahead, different changes and stuff. So I wouldn't say anything wrongful about them. I just think they made a decision and it was going to impact my event for particularly and the market that I had built as what we were going to be helping. And it just didn't fit in guidelines anymore. But they wanted the bike back. Let's put it that way. Like literally 2 weeks before I was doing my attempt. And I was like, you can't do that. You can't pull from other sponsors. Like, this is not just me that you would be doing this to. And it was it was very hard. All I can say is super emotional. People didn't get to see that. And, it's the unfortunate, it's the world of dealing with brands and sponsors. So learning that process, Sylvie, and, and I'm so grateful for everybody that did come on board. Cause honestly, like that being a company that's not out to market, not creating revenue yet throughout the whole pandemic, the only way that this was possible was by having some great teams come on board to put some capital in and help me get there. And I'm over the moon to have some of the great sponsors and obviously people that were following and seeing me learn the names, and they'll continue to, like, they're involved with Perfect or Podium. They want to advance women and girls in sport, which is fantastic. So they knew this was not a one and done. Their investment in me was an investment in girls and women. So it really, that for me was meaningful. And obviously as the pandemic continued and I already had them committed, it made it more a need for me in a positive way to have to continue this. Like it was not no longer just about myself. I was responsible for some great teams that believed in me and believed in the message. So now it's pretty cool.
Wow, Angela, I can't even imagine 2 weeks before when you're trying to physically and mentally prepare for that. And you're like, what? You're taking my bike?
Yeah, it was definitely a shock. And the funny part was, and again, like people will see this as we come out with like stuff around Perfect or Podium, is Israel and the Mexican Federation, because they had gotten to know me, they offered me one of their bikes, which was a Cervelo T3, which is the same one that Evelyn Stevens and Molly did. There's a great track bike. And Israel's like, don't worry, we have a bike. If this happens, you're still going to go and you're still going to do what you can.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So like, there's such a great story behind this. And I think it's just, I think we oftentimes, if you get pushed down or you do that, you just get back up and you look at what can be possible. And definitely I had my Ray Zahab voice in the back of my mind. Like, I was like thinking about, I was like, you know what, man, this guy goes out and conquers these 100-milers and does these crazy things. I'm like, you know what? It is possible. There is possible in I am impossible. So yeah, you just gotta make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. So now that's done. You're like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go home now. Cross the finish line. Okay, bye.
I'm like, whoa. I'm like, well, it was funny. Well, Israel's like, do you want the helmet? I'm going, I don't know. Do I need the helmet? Like, do I need the Bambino helmet? And he goes, well, you might be back. I'm like, looked at him. I said, I know you're going to keep trying to get me to come back. I'm like, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to come back with other
when I'm 60.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to come back. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have kids with me and be helping maybe the sport program down there. Cause they need some of our help too. So they've got some good talent down in Mexico. And I definitely want to see some of those young girls have that opportunity if they want to race pro and boys. Like they've got a different system than a lot of the sport federations I've seen globally, but it was a lot of fun to ride with them and get to know their families. So it was pretty special.
So do you now have a coach, or are you able to go and ride and do whatever you want?
I can do whatever I want.
My God, that great.
It's so good. I'm like, Yeah. I'm out actually, speaking of Mark Waugh, I'm going to be out for a nice bike ride on Sunday. It's his last long ride. So I'm going to go with him. It's going to be fun. And I'm really happy. I think it's only a 3-hour ride. I was thinking it was going to be a 5 or 6 hour. I can do 5 hours.
You're
I
like,
was like, oh my God.
only call me on your recovery days.
The recovery days. Anything past 3 hours now, like, obviously I love riding,
Yeah.
but it's been
Yeah, I
training
know. I get it. I'm like,
yeah, no, I'm looking forward, different training stuff. I definitely, I'm excited. The spinning, it has been a big part. I did take, obviously, and gyms were closed anyways, but I'm reaching out and have some conversations with Peloton. So stay tuned.
geez, would you please drive up their market share? Gosh.
Yeah, I know they've been hit. Well, we've got some conversations happening with Athletica with them. And then, yeah, I definitely kind of had some
Well,
fun.
they need to organize their CEO and all that. Anyways, but that's
a whole other conversation. But yeah, they're definitely, they need to take a look at some new opportunities that could.
Somebody needs to buy them is what needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad that you're home. So maybe we should actually organize a ride or two.
We should totally go for a ride. I'm all for that. Let's do it.
I know. I'm finishing up the gravel stuff. And then I'm off the hook because I have something that I was hoping to, really go hard at, but based on everything that has happened the last summer, like over the summer, I got sick. I ended up, canceling an event. I did half of one. That's where my DNF came from. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they put DNF on my name. Anyways, and I was just like, and then I had 2 accidents and
I saw the accident. Oh my God. That's right.
You want to see, look how nice it's, isn't that pretty?
That is pretty. You know what? You could cough it up for like a curling accident. Like it looks like
curling iron. Yes, you could. Yeah. I'm like, if I ever got a tattoo, it'd be right over that.
It'd be right over that. Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyways,
that's
so there's that.
Accidents. Jeez.
Yeah, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm just not feeling as strong as I had hoped to, that I was planning on for the summer to build up to this time. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go have fun. But and sometimes you have summers like that, right? You're like,
oh yeah.
But next year, got my calendar ready. So maybe you might have to get a gravel bike, Angela.
I'm definitely in for getting a gravel bike. Oh yeah. I have another really good close girlfriend of mine, Alicia Crawl, and she's amazing. And she's doing some serious gravel stuff. If you're into some road trips, I might be doing some next year. Okay. So with that, I've loved catching up with you. We do really have to do this and see each other in person at some point. Yes. And just chat about other things that you're doing outside of this podcast. But I've hoped that our listeners have enjoyed Angela's story to getting to national world record for Canada. Yeah, I know. I'm like, because so I was so proud of you. I was watching all that. I missed the hair, unfortunately. I probably would have had a great laugh. Oh, that's okay. I think I'm gonna do like a funny post with like, here's the before, and then the really blonde, and then the after, and then the post. So yeah, kind of get the whole like journey of also the hair of being a female cyclist that as my friends say, like, oh, she gets the glam out, right? So it's kind of like I go from the bike shoes to the heels, but why not? It's fun. I know. It's like your hair to my hair right now. I have to balance the two. Like it is, at least I would say in the business sense, it's funny. Like everybody that knows me from my company now, like I can show up sweaty and be still in my bike jersey. And they're like, oh, it's just Angela. But then obviously I do show up sometimes, playing the part of a female executive CEO. All glammed up. Yeah. I mean, those are great times, like when you get to look get to professional. Yeah. I lived in I forget about those I lived in a diaper for 2 months. Like I literally lived, like there's days that I just stayed in my jersey and I was just like, well, I've got another training session. So like nobody else is in the Airbnb other than the cat. So I was like, I don't think she's going to mind.
Oh my God. Anyways, thanks so much. We'll just put up some links to Angela's social medias as to where you can follow her and also check out some of the business stuff that she's up to. And maybe, you know, next year we'll have to have her back when she's launched everything and she's got some information and updates to share with us. But thanks so much, Angela. This has been amazing. And I hope everybody's enjoyed the episode. So thank you very much and have an amazing day, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Sylvie.
Wow, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed that. Angela is like I said, she's an amazing human and she's got so many cool things on the go. And while after we finished our podcast interview, we chatted and we booked in a ride together because we haven't seen each other face to face and we couldn't figure out how many years it'd been. So this is going to be nice. It'll be nice to see her. And I hope you guys really enjoyed our chat on everything that she did for her record. And now she's back on Canadian soil and back into her business. So with that, enjoy your day. And we'll see you on the next episode, which will be my coaching segment. So make sure you don't miss it. Take care, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Hey friends, thank you for enjoying this podcast episode. I'd love to invite you to visit our new and exciting page on buymeacoffee.com/secretsaddlepod to check out some cool downloadables. And if you are so inclined to supporting the podcast with the purchase of a coffee would be greatly appreciated in helping keep the podcast going. Also, providing a separate rating and review on your favorite platform with any thoughts about the podcast are hugely helpful and appreciated. Thank you so much and have yourself an amazing day. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Secrets from the Saddle podcast, learning more about sighting people, places, and things that make cycling such an exciting sport. I am so glad you stopped by today. Please leave me a review if you feel so moved to do so. I would love to hear your feedback. And if you could take 1 second to share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it, I would be forever grateful. Also, if you could please leave me a review if you feel so moved by going to iTunes and leaving me an honest thought and an honest comment, telling me what you think, and most importantly, tell me what you'd like to hear more of. It would really help me to bring more great, inspiring cycling stories to you. Until then, have an amazing day. Make sure you ride your bike. And don't forget to visit my YouTube channel if you'd like to see the full version of this podcast live.